I'm here with Gavan Grosser, who completed his Bachelor of Arts in Theology at Avondale back in 1971. But this year, he is our Alumnus of the Year. Gavan, welcome and congratulations.
Oh, it's good to be here. I love homecoming.
I know, you've been to a few, haven't you?
I've attended most of them.
Yeah, well done. Now, I did say just before that you had completed your years of study in a Bachelor of Arts, but you've just informed me earlier that you didn't actually graduate.
No, I walked out of Avondale nude without a cap and gown.
So tell me, you say you completed it, but you didn't graduate. Why didn't you get to graduate?
One word, Greek. I stumbled over the subject of Greek, and even with a couple of attempts, I didn't seem to master it. So that lowered my grade point average, and I did not graduate.
There you go. But you've still gone on to make a massive difference in what you're doing, and we'll get to that shortly. But if you can give us a bit of context, where are you living at the moment?
We're living in South Gippsland in a little township called Currumborough. It's about 5,000 population, and it's about halfway between Melbourne and Wilson's Prom.
And you say we, so who's we?
My wife Gloria and myself, and Gloria and I have been married for the past 30 years.
Now, for a decade after you graduated or completed your course at Avondale, you worked as a pastor in churches both in the Victorian and Greater Sydney conferences. But then you took a bit of a career tack. So why did you take that change, and what did you get into?
Well, I enjoyed my role as a church pastor, and pastoring 8 churches in 11 years and being part of the great Advent movement, emphasis on movement. All of the moves that we undertook took a toll on our family life, and so we made a decision to branch out and do something a little different. And so for the next 3 years, I was an at-home dad, and my then wife, Kerry, she was able to do full-time work, lecturing as a librarian, and also undertaking postgraduate work, doing her MA and beginning her doctoral program.
Okay.
But along the way, divorce and remarriage took place, and happily so, and I became employed in regular funeral work.
We've spoken a little bit before this, and you seem to have quite a gift for taking a service for people, who don't necessarily have a faith background or even have a local church affiliation. So how do you actually go about bringing a sense of peace and a sense of hope to people who are mourning and don't necessarily have that faith in God or that connection to a faith community?
When families make no outward expression or profession of faith in God, what they don't know is that before I go into the chapel and conduct the service, before I leave my vehicle, I have already prayed that the atmosphere of heaven will be present at that venue. And I believe that heavenly messengers are already at work, softening people's hearts and using the words that have been given to the speaker to penetrate sometimes a fairly tough exterior. So while the words I speak may not have the religious overtones, they are word pictures, and the manner in which I present them does make a difference. And I take great courage from the stories in the scripture. And if God can speak through a donkey back in Balaam's time, he can speak through this instrument, and he does. So I guess you could say I am an evangelist still, while not in a preaching mode with an open Bible in my hands, quoting verses of scripture. Nevertheless, embedded within me is the living word, and spontaneity certainly flows as the Spirit directs. And so I see myself as a real instrument, ministering to broken hearts of people who have so recently been plunged into grief. And so then the milk of human kindness does go a long way.
Yeah, it would. Tell me how you feel about your job and what you do for people.
Well, some of my mates when I go back to homecoming, they comment, "Oh, Gav, are people still dying to get to you?" And they say, "What? How come you haven't retired? You're 72." And I said, "Well, when you enjoy what you're doing, when you've got a passion for it, why stop the flow? I'll put my bucket under the tap, and while the tap is flowing, I will catch the drips."
Do you think you know how many funerals that you may have conducted since sort of going into this profession?
I am a bit anal in that I do have a graph that I started when I did my first funeral as a celebrant, which was in July of 1989. And it didn't take long before there was a consistent pattern that emerged, and that was pretty much an average of about 8 funerals a week that I was doing. It's some figures north of 10,000, and that also includes some weddings along the way, name days, community celebrations like Anzac Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, anniversaries of people that have been together 50 years, 60 years, etc. Important mileposts along the way.
Gavin, you tragically lost your son when he was 32 years old. What sort of impact did that have on your role as a funeral celebrant and as a father?
Well, it was a real tragedy that happened in our family, and what it did for me is that it enabled me to walk in the shoes of other people, other families, parents who had lost a child at whatever age. You cannot say that you know exactly how someone else feels, but at least sometimes when appropriate, you can just tell of how I have handled the grief situation and the loss of my son. That was back in 2006 when Jade died. And also I have found since that studies show that counsellors, psychologists, psychiatrists, those who work in the social welfare field are more effective in having experienced some pain and trauma in life themselves. They have something to draw from within that adds to the empathy that we can share.
What's one of the more memorable moments for you as being a civil celebrant?
One stands out was when I was asked by the management of Origin Energy to helicopter out to a platform out in Bass Strait to conduct a memorial service for 2 of their employees who had had the misfortune of an industrial accident and lost their lives. And so I arrived there early in the morning, and I arrived on the scene knowing nothing about these men. And so what I sought to do was to chat to those in the mess room who knew them, and also chat to their bosses, and within a couple of hours put together an appropriate and dignified farewell to them. And we stood up on the helipad and looked out over the ocean, and we felt very small in that ocean. But it was a wonderful occasion, and the event was filmed, and a copy was sent to respective families.
And you just so beautifully help people transition through such a sensitive time, and you have so much genuine care and commitment, and that commitment not only to the people you're serving, but to Christ. And for those reasons, Gavan, Avondale is honouring you this weekend at Homecoming.
Thank you. It's been lovely to speak to you, and also to address so many of my peers wherever you happen to be in the world.